Okay, welcome to everybody that is logged in. I'm sure we will be getting more people attending and logging in as we go. I'm going to kick things off really quick for us. My name is Troy Collar from TLC Creative Services, and I get to play host for today. So welcome everyone that has joined the Presentation Guild for this live webinar demo of the new PowerPoint Zoom tool. Today we have Derek Johnson from Microsoft giving everyone an advanced look at this new feature in PowerPoint, Zoom. Derek is a principal PM manager at Microsoft working on PowerPoint, which for us listening means he's actually one of the people that is really working on the coding for PowerPoint, not just a PR person doing a canned demo. This also means we're hearing from someone that can not only answer our questions, but is capturing our input for additional development on things like Zoom. Derek is based in the Microsoft campus in Mountain View, California, near San Francisco. His team has been responsible for a lot of recent things that we've been excited about, such as Morph, Designer, and now Zoom. In addition, we have Echo Swinford from Echo's Voice, a presentation designer and president of the Presentation Guild, running everything technical behind the scenes for this webinar. So many thanks to her for getting this all together. And myself, Troy Collar from TLC Creative Services, happily being the host for this webinar. For that, I am now turning over the webcast to Derek Johnson from Microsoft to wow us with demos and information about Zoom, a new feature in PowerPoint that leverages the new Morph transition for nonlinear custom shows. Derek, take it away.
Hi, Troy. Thank you so much for the intro, and thank you all for joining this morning. Again, my name is Derek Johnson, and I'm the PM manager on the team on PowerPoint that's coming up with some of the work that I'm going to be showing off today. And today we're going to talk specifically about Zoom. It's important to note, if you just look at what's been happening with PowerPoint as part of the overall Office 365 effort, we've done a lot of work since we last released in September of 2016. Troy mentioned a couple of these. Morph, Designer, and now Zoom are all features that are part of the Office 365 subscription. So we really wanted to drive home the point that if you want the latest and greatest for PowerPoint, 365 is where it's all happening. But let's dig in and let's start talking about Zoom. I don't know if you're able to ask a question, Echo. I'm curious of who has heard of Zoom or who has had a chance to use Zoom, if we can get a sense of where the room is at. And I'll get started actually talking about what it is while Echo can get that going. So think about Zoom as one of our newest tools, and it's specifically aimed at helping you add interactivity to your presentation as well as non-linearity. And that's kind of a big word to mean you don't have to go in the order that your slides are in. We know that in the modern world, conversations can go any number of different ways. You have content prepared for the entirety of a meeting, but it doesn't mean you want to necessarily go in that order. We also know that people use PowerPoint in very different ways. If you're up on stage presenting, you might be more likely to go start to finish. If you're in a small room with 3 or 4 of your colleagues on an iPad or on a Surface device, you might have a totally different conversation. And Zoom is there to help you drive that conversation kind of any way you want. So one thing to cover is, how do I get Zoom? And this is a question that we're often seeing with new features within Office. You need to be an Office 365 subscriber to be able to author a Zoom. As of today, it's rolling out globally. So if you are a subscriber, starting in the next day or so, you should be getting Zoom automatically. There's also the Office Insider program that lets you have early access to some of these features. And Zoom has been in that program for the last 2 weeks. So if you're really itching to get started, join the Office Insider program today, and you'll be able to get Zoom and all the other tools immediately. So all right, Echo, are we able to see if we have any Zoom experts already in the audience?
Okay, Derek, it looks like most have not used it based on the yes-no questions. And so, yeah, we're going to be speaking to a lot of people that this is their first exposure to this awesome new tool.
All right, great. And there's a lot I want to show you anyway, so even if you have used it, I'm sure there's some tricks that you'll learn if you follow along this webinar. So I'm going to dive right in and talk about the new Zoom features. So there's actually 3 different features that are part of the Zoom family, and I'm going to pull up a couple decks. So the 3 new Zoom tools are up in the Insert tab, and there's this new Zoom icon now, and you can see the 3 different versions that we have. So Summary Zoom, Section Zoom, and Slide Zoom. At the core, they're all very similar, but depending on what you're trying to do, they work slightly differently. I'm going to start with Section Zoom because I believe it's probably the easiest one to follow along with. If you're familiar with custom shows in PowerPoint, you're going to like a lot of the stuff that happens with section and summary zooms. You can think of a section zoom as a link to a complete section in your presentation. So let me just show you what that means. Once we insert a section zoom, it's going to ask you which section you want to link to. So I'm just going to pick this red section here. I have 4 sections in my presentation, and I've color-coded the background to make it really clear that there are parts of different sections. So I'm just going to tap on the section that I want and click Insert. And what you see here is called a section zoom. So what this is a visual representation of the first slide of the section that we're linking to. And this thing stays up to date. So if I make a change on this section and change this to add some text or such, you'll see that immediately we're going to see a live update on this. So this thing's always got your back and is updating to make sure that it always has the latest content. So just like any other image or shape, I can do things like add effects, anything that I want. It acts just like any other shape. But where this gets special is we're going to go into Slideshow, and now we have this tappable region. So I'm going to do a little bit of a warning. Since we're on a webinar, this is a feature that relies very heavily on animations and transitions, and sometimes the full fidelity can be lost on a webinar. So you'll have to trust me that it's very, very smooth when presented locally, but you should still be able to follow along on this webinar. So what I'm going to do now is tap on this section, and PowerPoint's going to automatically zoom me in to this section. Now I'm able to advance as normal, and once I get to the end of this section, in this case there's only 2 slides, you're going to see that PowerPoint automatically brings me back to this overview slide. So it lets me have control over what I want to see, and then I can come back to my overview slide here and give people context. So let's add one more of these, and I'll show you a trick. You can actually just drag and drop these on. So now I've got 2. So I'm able to go back into Slideshow here. I'm going to click on this. And as I go through, instead of going to the next section, it's going to come back to this home page. I can then decide what section do I want to talk about next. Perhaps I want to move to section 2, or perhaps I want to reiterate a question on section 1, or I might even want to jump ahead to something else. If I just press the next arrow, it's going to automatically know that section 2 is my next section and take care of me. When I get back at the end of section 2, again, we're returning back to this home page. So you can see how this really gives you the ability to control the conversation. You can have 3 different section links, for example, up on a slide, and you can ask your audience, what are they interested in? They no longer have to wait for their question because you might have had your slides in a different order. This gives the whole conversational aspect a much easier way to happen in a presentation. So I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions, or if I went a little too fast, please let me know in the chat window, and I'm glad to either do it again or slow down.
Hey, Derek, one of the first questions that I'll bring up that was brought in is Zoom coming to the Mac?
Yes. So as we're doing our features, we're going to be having playback come to the Mac as soon as possible. It's slated by the end of this year, and we want playback of all of these features on all of our endpoints. We know how important it is that if you create a new presentation, that every device you have can accurately play it back with full fidelity. So yes, it will be coming to the Mac by the end of this year, and then we'll also be developing some of the editing features a bit later on. So first we're going to focus on making sure that if you have a Zoom, it will play back on every device you have. Then we'll make sure that you can create them equally well everywhere. So it's all part of the Office 365 kind of promise to make sure that your cross-platform story is very solid and that you can work on all your devices.
Correct. And just to confirm, that'll be Office 365 installs of PowerPoint on any platform first versus previous generations, and if somebody's using PowerPoint 2016 non-Office 365, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Another question I'm just going to verbalize this one here is somebody made the really quick observation. This is very similar to setting up custom shows or just setting up interface links within PowerPoint. So you're leveraging the same idea, but now in a different, smoother package, or how would you describe that?
Yeah, I think we looked at the kind of things people were doing with custom shows and these relatively complex interface links that were somewhat fragile. With a custom show, you'd always have to make sure if you add, remove, or reorder slides that everything was still properly set up. And we wanted to take that away from folks and really make that automatic. We also think that there's some other tools I'll show you that really take this to another level. But yes, at its core, we are aiming to replace those scenarios and have a better way of making that happen.
Great. And then someone else brought up another question, and I'm going to rephrase it here. Can you explain how Section Zoom, this particular tool, is very much custom shows show and return feature? So what happens at the end of the slides in that section is the question.
So yes, at the end of each section, we're going to return back to the overview slide. I think that is the question, does that happen, or what would happen if you did not want that?
No, the question is what happens when you reach the end of that section?
Yes, so when you reach the end of the section, it's going to come back to the overview slide that you came from. There's actually an option to disable that I'll get into later if you just want to continue through your presentation.
Great. I'm going to cut us off on questions. Keep sending them in on the Q&A panel. I'm going to spool them up here so you can move into the next type.
Great. So clearly by the custom show questions, many of you might be familiar with some of the benefits that you can have by having this nonlinearity in your presentation. So I just showed you section zooms, and this works great if you have sections, and if you really want to create them all at once, you can drag and drop and do all that. We actually have an easier way, and it's called summary zoom. So I'm going to open up what looks to be the same presentation, but it doesn't have sections. We have a lot of data coming in through the product, and most of our users don't use sections, and we think that's a shame because there's a lot of great features that are built on sections. But we want to make this easy for you as well. So I'm going to show you what's a very similar scenario using, again, almost the same deck that doesn't have sections, and we're going to start with what's called a summary zoom. You can think of this as a one-click or two-click table of contents for your PowerPoint deck. So we're going to go up to Insert, Zoom, and Summary Zoom. And you're going to see this dialog. It's a little bit different than the one you saw before. And what it's doing is saying, figure out where you want all of your sections to start, and then we're going to take care of everything for you. So what I'm going to do is click on the first slide of every section. And what you'll see here is we draw these connecting lines to show you which sections are being created. You can see a gap here between 3 and 4 because these are different sections between section 1 and section 2. So again, I just select the sections that I want. And when I press Insert, you're going to see a couple things happened here. So for one, we actually created sections for you and put your slides in the proper sections. So in 1 or 2 clicks, we've already organized your deck. We've also added a brand new slide here, which is a summary slide, and it's auto-added effectively a section zoom for every section that you have in your presentation. So if I go into Slideshow here, just like you saw before, these are all interactive. They'll go through my presentation, they'll return, but I can also click and jump ahead and go wherever I want. And again, it will return. So I'm going to undo that and do that one more time, just to show again. We're going to Insert Zoom, Summary Zoom, and this dialog is asking us where do you want each of your sections to start. So we're just going to tap once on the first slide of every section. So in this case, I have my 4 sections, and then I'm going to press Insert. And again, here it's auto-created my sections, and it's also added this summary slide for us. So note this is on a new slide. However, this object, you can drag and drop, you can copy and paste wherever you want. So if you don't want it on a new slide, no problem. Copy and paste this onto your existing agenda slide. That will work just fine. You'll also notice this looks a lot like a group. And it has a lot of similar behaviors as what a smart art does when it has a bunch of shapes. So I can resize this. And automatically here, PowerPoint's going to lay this out according to what space we have available, and things will resize. At the same point, you can do whatever you want here. You can move these things around, resize. You can even rotate. We definitely recommend that you use the rotation with a little bit of care because it can lead to some barrel roll effects that are not desirable. But all of this is within your control here once you have this object. So I'm going to quickly undo all of these mess of changes. And what
So
you'll
while
notice
you're
here,
doing
yeah, go
while
ahead.
you're doing that, Derek, can you just give me a yes or no just to answer a couple of comments that have come in to confirm the summary. I need to click on it to get the names of them. Insert. So the summary zoom will automatically create sections for us if we don't have them in there.
That's
And
right.
the section zoom tool will leverage existing sections if we've preset them, correct?
That's correct. So think about summary zoom as kind of auto-inserting a group of section zooms, but it also helps you create sections if you don't have them. And we know that's very important because most of the presentations we see do not have sections.
Perfect. Take us away to where you're going to show us next. And I will make a comment, only because I've been using Zoom now since it released. This is, the playback is very, very smooth. It's just like Morph. There's actually some advantages over Morph with this. And the video webinar playback, depending on your connection speed, it's a little bit choppier here than it is when you're using it at a live presentation.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So one more thing here is you've noticed that I added my appendix section, but I don't really want that to be part of my agenda slide. It's just not going to help me. I want that to be there if I want it later. So what I can do is select any of these summary zoom objects, come up to the Zoom Tools tab up here. So just like when you select a shape, you get this new tab. Same for summary zoom. And there's an Edit Summary button up here in the top left. And this is going to let me control what shows up in here. So when I press it, you see here all the different sections that are already part of this zoom. I'm just going to uncheck the appendix because I actually don't want it to be part of my summary zoom. So once I uncheck that and press update, it disappears. It doesn't actually delete anything with my section, so my slides are still here. I still have control over them. It just keeps that out of my summary zoom. So I can control again what shows up and what doesn't. And you'll also see a little trick here is when it's selected, each link will show you exactly which slides it's going to, and those will stay up to date for you. So if you ever have a concern of what slides is this actually linking to, you can just click on it and you'll see exactly what's happening there. All right, if there's no questions on that, I'm going to move to the third and final zoom, which is slide zoom.
Yeah, I'm going to let you run through that demo, and then I'm spooling up a number of questions. So we'll probably have a good 10 minutes of you demoing different components here before you go on to that last part about all the cool hidden features of Zoom.
Sure. Cool. So the third one, I'm going to switch over to a different presentation here. Actually, I'll just use this presentation. Let me find this very fast. Well, I'll do it with this slide instead. So with a slide zoom, the idea is you're actually just linking to an individual slide. You're not doing anything with sections. You're going one slide at a time. So I'm going to delete these ones, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a slide zoom, and then I'll go quickly into how you can use this in practice. So what I'm going to do here is just drag and drop. So I'm going to take any slide, and I'm just going to drag it on. And that automatically creates a zoom slide here for me. You can also do this through the Insert tab by going Insert, Zoom, Slide Zoom, but I find drag and drop to be far easier for myself. So both of those work. So now that I've got this, I'm able to go into Slideshow here, and similarly when I click on it, it's just going to zoom back in. Now one of the things here that you can notice, it's a little hard probably to see on the webinar, is we have these controls in Slideshow that have always been there. Your next and previous, your pen controls and all that. You might notice this new one here, which is an up arrow. And now that we have this sense of hierarchy that you're actually zooming into something, you can press this up arrow and it's going to zoom you back out to the next level. So you'll see it's gone now because we're not actually zoomed in. But once I zoom into one, PowerPoint's smart enough to know that we're now zoomed into a slide and there's a level above it that we came from, and we can come back out with that. The keyboard shortcut there is Shift Up. So you can Shift Up and you can get out of that back to your home screen. So you might have something set up where you're going to go through a set of slides and someone says, hey, I don't care about that. Let's skip on to something else. you can quickly jump back up to your overview, and then you can have control over where you want to take your presentation. So it gets a little more interesting here as we add more slides. So I'm going to drag on one more, and I'll just resize that, and then I'm going to do one more. And just for effect here, I'll rotate this a little bit. So let's see here. Let's do this one. So I'm just dragging and dropping these on, just creating a ton of them. And I'll do one more here, just to. Now you can make this look, obviously, quite a bit better than what I'm doing here, but I'm just trying to drive home the point. So we're going to enter into Slideshow now that I've dragged all of these on. And I'm going to click on the first one, but the next arrow would work just as well. So I'll actually do the next arrow. And it's going to, again, just zoom into that slide. But there is a trick here. So once you have more than one slide zoom, PowerPoint's going to automatically figure out the best way to move the camera to get you to the next slide. It's going to make a lot more sense when I show you, and I'll do this a couple times. So as I advance here, I'll go back and forth just to kind of show you what's happening. PowerPoint's figuring out, based on the context of that main slide, how can we navigate the camera to get to the next slide. And in that case, you can see it was rotated, and it's a little bit choppy on the webcam, or on the webinar, but you'll see that we're automatically doing this camera motion for you to get you where you need to go. So you didn't have to do any setup to do that. PowerPoint's just figuring this out for you. So that's the main difference between what a slide zoom is going to offer is they have this transition where it will automatically do this camera motion for you. And again, if we want to come back up, we can just press the up arrow, and now we're back to our overview slide. So Troy, I think this might be a good place to stop for some questions before I dig into some of the more hidden features, the more advanced features of these zooms.
Fantastic. I can definitely load you up. I am going to set a 10-minute timer here and just kind of go through these until we run out of time. Sure. So first up, and this is a little bit of a recap, what does Zoom look like on, you probably have to verbally explain this one because we don't have a demo of it, but what happens to somebody using, say, PowerPoint 2013 or 2010 when they have a presentation that has been built with Zoom?
Yeah. So what happens if you load a Zoom presentation on an older version is it's all going to load correctly. These images are actually going to still be there. So all of these Zooms that you see that have these thumbnails, those are still saved into the file. They're just converted to pictures. So if you open it up, it's going to look the same. And they are still linked to the proper slide. So if I open this up and I click on one of them, it's still going to jump me to the proper slide. But there's two big things that you will not get. So once you get to the end of a section, it's not going to return back to the home. It doesn't have that functionality in older versions. The second big thing that you're going to miss is it's not going to auto-update if you make changes on the slide. So I showed you how if I make a change to the slide that it's linking to, that the thumbnail will auto-update itself. That's not going to happen. And the third thing is you won't get the transition, of course, that zooming transition. It's going to do whatever transition that you have applied to the slide. So you could set your own zoom transition or a fade, and it will just use that instead.
Perfect. And actually, I didn't know that because I guess we have had all of our demos preset to fade because we've only seen fade on the earlier version tests.
Yes.
So the next one is, the next one is that Echo's chiming in. We're supposed to share your webcam so that people can get a glimpse of you.
Oh, of course.
There's Derek. There's me. Hey, Derek, you look great. Okay, so the next one is, will Zoom work in the PowerPoint web app?
Yeah, so similar to how I talked about we're taking Zoom playback across all of our devices, the web is one of the places that we're also targeting. It's not available today, but we're bringing Morph playback coming this year, and we're also working towards Zoom playback. So yes, the goal is absolutely to have these playback everywhere, including the web. It does not exist today. Today you're going to get similar behavior that I described for some of the older versions.
That is fantastic news that I haven't heard yet, so very excited. Okay, this one's kind of a recap of what you've already said, but could you summarize how does a user return to the summary slide or the agenda slide before they get to the end of the section? So if they have set up a section with, say, 10 slides, they've gotten to slide number 5, and they think that's enough information, how do they easily get back to that agenda slide?
Yeah, so let me just show this here. I'm going to delete all of these. And it's very easy. So I've got a section here, and there's 2 slides in this section. So what I'm going to demo here is we're going to get to the first slide of the section. And let's say, I believe the question is we get interrupted here and say, hey, I don't want to see the rest of your slides. Let's just jump back. There's 2 options. The first option is taking your mouse over this up arrow in the bottom left, and I can just press up, and that's going to jump me right back to my overview slide. And if you're on a keyboard or a device with a keyboard, Shift up will do the exact same thing. So you can always end it early with this up arrow, and Shift up will do the same thing. And of course, if you do go through the entire section, it's going to come back automatically for you. But if you want to cut that off early, you can press that up arrow or Shift up to make that happen.
Oh, you're right. Reading my notes, because you just literally said the next question is, show and return. Can you define where Zoom, the 3 tool options, one of them automatically sets up a return to the agenda slides, and how do you set up the other ones? Or let me rephrase that. Define where Zoom is set to automatically return to the agenda slide, and when it does not, it either goes to the next slide or to the end of show.
Yeah, so you actually have complete control over this, and I'll show you where. If you just select any of these zooms, so in this case I have a section zoom, I go up to this Zoom Tools tab, and along the left edge here in the top left, you'll see a couple controls here. You see Return to Zoom, and that's what you're looking for. In this case, it defaults to on for section zoom and summary zoom. Slide zoom defaults off because we really want to have that camera motion happening instead. But at any point, you can just uncheck this. And once I do that, what's going to happen now is after I get through the section, it's just going to continue on to my next section, just like a normal presentation.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, another question. This one is because all the examples you've given rely on interaction with the presentation, mouse control in the presentation. What about the scenario where a presenter is using a wireless remote to just simply advance their slides forward and backward? Do they have functionality of Zoom in any way? Can it be programmed into the animation pane or anything along those lines?
Yes, so we wanted to make sure that if you have just a clicker and you're on a podium, that you can still use this without any of those tools. So I'm going to quickly create a summary zoom here because it's probably the easiest to show. In this case, this deck already has sections, so it's already pre-highlighted. I just press OK. Great. So now let's just pretend that I'm going to give my presentation with a clicker. So you'll have to take my word for it. I'm just going to press the next arrow like a clicker would do.
We believe you.
You'll go to my summary slide, and as I press next, it's going to come to this first section. I'm going to press next again. Pressing next again, you see it comes back. And now when I press next, PowerPoint's smart enough to know we just came from section 1, so it's going to come to section 2 automatically for us. So I'm just pressing next here. PowerPoint's going to get us through the presentation.
Fantastic. And that's based on the order of the thumbnails you have there, the 4, so it's going to literally go, in this case, you have them nicely numbered 1, 2, 3 appendix.
Yep.
Can you reorder those in any way? Now I'm just asking questions because I want to know.
Yeah, so let's say I reorder this.
So you reorder the sections themselves?
Yes.
Great.
A bit of a pre-release version here, so bear with me.
By the way, echoes in the background going wahoo to the fact that we did not know that you could do this with, no mouse was necessary or interface. So this is big, great stuff. Show and return. How does the user return? Okay.
Bear with me.
I got one here. Now you do that, and I'm going to read through my next question and summarize this.
Yes, so you are able to do this. You can just go here and, again, edit them. You can change whatever order you want. Update. You'll see now that I moved the sections. This is out of order, but it's in the right order. So you'll see section 2, 1, 3. All of this stuff is just managed for you. Of course, the fact that I numbered it makes it confusing, but you can drag and drop at will. The presentation, if you're using the next arrow, is always going to follow the order in this thumbnail pane. That's the way people expect it. It's the way PowerPoint's always worked. So we kept that the same. If you press next, you're always going to get the next slide. The only exception being if it comes back to that summary slide briefly before it comes to the next slide. But it's always going to go in that thumbnail order.
Fantastic. Okay, that's really exciting. Yeah, I've had a design team at TLC working on coming up with scenarios for this. We have not figured that out, so that's really exciting. Okay, here's another one for you, and I promise this will be my only Prezi reference, and it's more of an aesthetic visual reference, because we could recreate this using in Keynote as well. But with Morph and Zoom having a very similar visual kind of zoom in effect, how would you characterize Zoom over Prezi from a visual standpoint? Not the how does it create nonlinear presentations, because obviously that's something it's the core of the tool, but from a visual standpoint, how do you kind of characterize, what's your kind of, I guess, Microsoft stance on this is not Prezi recreated as far as a visual look? There's what I'm trying to say based on the questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at Prezi as a tool, they did some really good things about helping to create context. And that's really the core of what this comes down to, is by having these contextual relationships as you navigate, it can make it easier for your audience to understand what you're talking about rather than just a stack of slides, which makes it a little more challenging. One of the things that we think Zoom is going to offer that's a little bit different in Prezi is a familiar interface that people are used to editing with, and also the ability to easily reuse your existing content. So some of the challenges we hear with Prezi are the editing model is quite a bit different, and if I've got 10 years of PowerPoint presentations that I want to mix and match, I have to manually bring that all into Prezi. With Zoom, you can actually just reuse that content. As you saw, everything here is just normal slides. And one of the next topics I'll get into is some of the visual changes that you can do in PowerPoint with Zoom, and I think you'll be interested to see those. And I think I leave it up to you guys to form your opinion of what you think of the visual effect versus what Prezi offers. We think at the end of the day, they're both great tools, and they're both trying to solve a similar problem of giving people context as they navigate through their presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, because that's obviously a conversation that's going to come up over and over. Okay, this one's back to the technical side. Where are we at on time? Okay, we got a few more, hopefully a few more. Just to confirm, in a custom show, we use the escape key to move out of the custom show. The escape key is not a part of Zoom, or it is, or where does escape key fall into Zoom?
No. So the escape key is still going to exit your presentation, which is what's generally happened with the normal presentation. That was a somewhat specific feature for custom shows, and it wasn't terribly well understood by our user base, so we wanted to be a little more clean. The best way to get up is you do Shift Up if you're looking for a keyboard shortcut, or again, that up arrow is going to be your way out. The escape key is going to end your presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you for clarifying. I'm going to add that to my notes as well. And then another one, because you demoed this, the on-screen toolbar that pops up in slideshow mode, the little up arrow is new and is only present when Zoom is in use. Correct or not correct?
Yes, it is correct. And it's only actually present when it's available. So once you're actually zoomed into something.
Okay. Chantel, who's on this, made a comment that is exactly what I'm going to have to do. Is I always tell people to turn that toolbar off. And based on if they're going to use Zoom, I may not be making that recommendation, as a few other people will as well. Let me find one more.
Whether you have the toolbar hidden or not, if you're looking for a keyboard shortcut for folks.
The shift up arrow will work no matter what?
Yes, that's right.
Fantastic. Okay. Whoops. Hold on. I just completely zipped to the top of this. Okay. Realize the up arrow. Some questions about. So I'm going to read this one as it's here because it's more of a feature request, and we'll put this into our little document we send to you, but you can decline is what I'm giving the option for. So the feature request is, and I think it makes a lot of sense, is the ability to put a placeholder into the section. Actually, you know what, let me not go there. Let me ask a question. Are you going to demonstrate how you can get the little rollover icons to show what links to what? Is that in your notes?
Yeah, you just tap
for later?
on it. You have this Zoom tab selected. These things show up automatically.
Okay, for everybody listening, we've never seen PowerPoint do anything like this to give us some tips on what the navigation is. I think this is huge.
So again,
and the numbers...
Go to the Zoom tools, and that shows up.
And can you explain what the little boxes are that we're seeing there, and then go into show mode to show that they're not visible in show mode?
Yeah. So here on this section 2, you're seeing it's going to link to slide 4, and the end of the section is slide 5. If you go to the thumbnail pane, you'll see this section 2 here starts on slide 4, ends on slide 5. And when I go into slideshow mode, again, these things do not show up, but you'll see it links us to slide 4. We can advance to slide 5, and then once we end, it comes back here. So it's just giving you a preview of what's going to happen. It's a good way to double check that things are set up as you expected. If that said 4 to 9, you might want to be concerned that maybe your sections aren't set up as you think they are.
Just by the way, you just got a ton of feedback saying yay for that. I will go ahead and say the next point is that when something happens to your sections, you actually get a broken link icon rolling over those so you know it's not going to work. So there's no more, hey, I have to test to see if it'll work. Microsoft has finally given us some visual feedback if the links work or not. It's very cool.
Just delete this section, and you'll see here you get this very visible broken link icon. You'll want to make sure you obviously never go into presentation mode if you have that, because clearly you're in bad shape.
Okay, so anybody can continue doing, sending in questions. I'm going to continue to spool them up. I'm going to let you run into your last section because I've got your cheat sheet, or I should say I've got your outline, so I'm cheating. This is the really cool stuff. So I'm going to Echo, if you can stop the webcam sharing so we can get full screen back, and we're going to let Derek take over and run us through some tips, tricks, and hidden features of Zoom.
All right. So let's see here. I'm going to go over to, this is really the first kind of real-world example of these features. The other decks I was showing you were extremely contrived. So what you're seeing here is really an example of Zoom kind of taken to the max on a small scale. So let's just take a look at what we've got here. We've got a deck with 6 slides. One of them's a bit empty, but I'll get to that in a minute. And you can see on each slide, there's a couple tricks happening. So we're jumping a little bit into some of the advanced stuff here, but you'll see some of the power that this has. So what we've got is some off-slide content here. And this is just going to animate in. So as soon as we navigate to this slide, this thing's just going to slide in. You'll see there's a quick motion path that just slides in from the right. And we've got some images, 1 per slide. Great. And then you're also going to see we have this slide. And let me show you what's happening here. I'm actually going to delete these. The things that are selected right now are Zoom slides. And this will make more sense in a minute. So this is actually my slide. It's got just an image here, some text. Great. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a slide Zoom, and we're just going to drag and drop this slide on here. Okay, so you can see that. I'm going to just drag the rest of them on here. I think this is in the right order. And great, just that easy. Now, you're probably noticing there's a pretty big difference of what I started with and what you're seeing now. You're seeing these big, white, ugly squares, and they're covering up the arrow, which kind of makes this a little bit hard to understand. So what we're going to do is select one of these. We're going to go up to the Zoom tools, and I'm showing you this on a slide Zoom, but it also works on a section Zoom or a summary Zoom. So with it selected, I'm going to press this Zoom background option up here on the Zoom tab. And what that does is it actually removes the background from the slide I'm linking to and just leaves the content. So in this case now you can see that white background is gone, and this is just directly overlaid on my image on the slide below it. So I'm going to do this again for the other ones. I'm just going to select them up here to Zoom background, and you see just that quick we remove the white background. And now these things are really kind of baked into this background. They almost feel part of the scene. So now what we're going to do is go into Slideshow, and when I click on them, you'll see what happens here. You actually keep the background behind it, so you're able to get this full context, and then as I navigate, you see we have this transition that goes back and forth. So let me slow this down and do it again here. We have an auto advance, which is going to make this a bit hard. Let me turn those off real fast for you. Okay, so again, we're going to go into Slideshow, and we're just going to tap on the first one, and you see it zooms in, our animation comes, and you're able to see the background still. So that green arrow gives you that context of what's happening in the scene. And then before I showed you, if you have more than one slide zoom, that it does this camera motion for you. check this out. It's going to go from right to left along this arrow and go to the next one. And then again, we're going to autoplay things like animations and videos. But let's go back and forth here. Again, you see that camera motion taking you along this path, and you can't even tell the fact that we've removed the background and it's now just baked into the slide behind it. So that's all that was actually on the slide. And then by removing the background, you're able to see it just blends right in. So I'll stop there because that one can take you for a loop. It's extremely powerful once you understand what's happening there.
Okay, so anybody has questions about how that worked, let me know. There are a number of not only wows, but questions about the zoom background, the remove tool. Can you clarify? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let's. I definitely want to take the zoom background questions.
Yeah, the zoom. So let's talk about zoom background. Then we'll go into what you've recreated here as a sample. So the real question is on the. I'm summarizing a number of ones that have come in, but if on the remove background option, is that something on the master layout? Is that anything on the master layout disappears, or just the embedded background image is disappearing?
So it's removing the master shapes. So if I go to, let's just pick a different theme that's a lot more visually intense here. So I'll re-show the background. You see the slide just as the thumbnail is, but by doing the zoom background, it takes all those master shapes away and just leaves your user content on top.
Now, on that master layout, and this may be a little more advanced, but this is directly based on a couple of people's questions. If we have objects on that master slide, like say a company logo, will that also disappear? So everything on the master layout disappears automatically?
I believe so. Why don't we just try it out?
So just, yeah, if you could, oh.
Let me get an image to try it real fast so I don't.
Or just a box, something colorful we could see would be great.
Do. Oh, reapply it. Okay, so there we go. We see we got two of them. This is so confusing that I use the same shape.
Perfect.
One of them is a master shape, one is not. We'll go up here and remove it, and yes, it removes all the shapes on the master. So logos, everything will be removed.
I think that is the exact result everybody was hoping for. Okay, would this work well? Okay, so this is actually something I've been thinking about as well. But the question is this is a really great, not the remove background, but the whole zoom effect. It's a great animation effect, and I keep saying that Morph is the newest and best animation tool added to PowerPoint, even though it's a transition.
Yeah.
Because Zoom is linked to specific slides and stuff, how can we leverage this as an animation?
I think Morph is going to be your best answer there. This tool is really not meant to replace animations. It's really meant to help you have more structure and retain context while you navigate. Morph is going to be your best approximation of a way to easily create really complex animations with a lot of ease. We really want to get out of the business of people having 100-item long custom animation pane, crazy animations. They're just too hard to work with, and we want to make it easier for folks.
Great. Oh, that's an interesting direction. Okay, here's a question, and what are we doing on time here, Echo? Just shoot me a message. Oh, you just did. You're reading my mind. Okay, so here's a question. I think it's a really good one. Two questions. One, will you be able to share any of the presentation sample decks that you've done? I know we're going to hopefully have the recording available for later, but are the sample decks going to be available in any way?
Yeah, I'm working on getting that approved. I have to make sure we get some sign-off, and I'll try to get these out. Certainly the colorful ones I can absolutely share, yes. And this recycling one, we just need to make sure that we're clean on our copyrights, that we're not doing anything that we're not supposed to do.
Fantastic. And here's a more detailed question. I know this hasn't come up in any of your notes. When we export a presentation to PDF, it'll save our links in it. So we can create an interactive PDF. Have you worked with seeing what Zoom does when we export to a PDF? Can we create an interactive PDF using Zoom in any way?
I'll have to follow up on that one. I don't have the answer offhand.
Okay. I think that's where I'm at as far as everything that's come in. I really need to do some more reading. Do you want to cover a couple? Oh, you got some more things. I'm going to let you go to it with these other the other items in your list. I'm going to let you go till you get to the feedback part because I don't want to run out of time here.
Yeah, just two more quick ones, again, that are really powerful. And this one is, again, one of my favorites. Certainly in a corporate environment, this can be very powerful. So often what you'll see is people will have an appendix, and it will have a ton of different slides that are auxiliary data that you may or may not need. But of course, if you're already in a presentation or in a conference room, you want to make sure you have all the data available. So you'll have these slides. But often what happens, again, is you put them at the end of your deck. They're kind of just random, and people don't necessarily look at them or keep them up to date. So instead, we have a bit of a trick that we think is a little more powerful here. So we can take this content and actually just embed it as a slide zoom and just put it somewhere in the corner or wherever you want, and we'll remove the background. So even more, it's just kind of there. So then the trick here is we're going to hide the slide. So we've taken the slide, we've dragged it in as a Zoom slide, but then we've actually hidden it. So what this will mean is as we just navigate through our presentation, since it's hidden, again, we're just going to follow the order that's in the thumbnail pane. I moved that one around. But since it's hidden, you can see it up there in the top left, but when we press next, we're just going to skip right past it because it's hidden. But here's the trick. Since we have a slide zoom, if someone asks a question, oh, I have auto advance on. Make my life easier. Okay, so let's say we're in this presentation and someone says, hey, I want to learn more about this. Now you have this optional ability to tap on your extra content and dig in. So this could be things like charts or graphs or whatever you want that's supporting data. And it's totally up to you if in the moment you want to share that content. Once you're done, you jump right back up and you keep going. But again, if you don't want to discuss it, not a problem, because since the slide is hidden, you skip right over it. So you're able to follow along there. I think that's a really powerful tool to understand, to be able to have this auxiliary content. And it's yet another way that you can take control of a conversation while still having all your information there.
I think that's a great way to do it. And if nobody caught it, that drag and drop to add a zoom is very, very cool. That's, I think, one of your coolest coding features right there for ease of use. Yeah, to create an agenda slide randomly. Yeah, it's very cool. Okay, I don't want to interrupt because the next one is the really cool topic.
Yeah, so you can see up here we've got this slide, this auxiliary content. Imagine this was 2 paragraphs long of explanations or citations, and you really don't want something, just a bunch of text sitting there. So you can select it. And again, you're coming back up to this Zoom Tools tab. There's a lot of functionality on here, so I definitely recommend playing around with it. In this case, we're going to go to what's Change Image. So what we can do is right now it's going to show you a thumbnail that automatically updates, but we can just replace this. So instead I can change the image out, and now this is representing that link. So when I go into Slideshow, I can just tap on this and you'll see it crossfade to my content. So you can imagine using something like an icon or something with transparency that really makes it blend into your slide. And it's almost like a little secret that you have if you want for extra info that you can tap on it at any point and bring up that content. But if I just advance, it skips right past it. All right. So kind of all of those together make this into a really, really powerful tool that lets you control your presentations and deliver them in any way you want, at any level of detail you want. So you can create your big Mondo presentation that has all your data, but if you want to present to an executive, you can just hide some of those slides and skip right over them, but you can also click on them if you want. So the approach people take today is they'll just hide the slides, and in case someone asks a question, you kind of have to jump out to grid view or come back to the editor, and it all kind of takes you out of your element. Instead, you can stay in your presentation seamlessly and access that content on demand. So I think this is a great point. We can stop and ask for any more questions. I think I've shown you probably the biggest hitters in Zoom. There's definitely more here that I haven't shown. but I encourage you guys to give a look. And again, I'll be taking all of your feedback and comments after the webinar. We'll try to give as many responses as we can. If you have issues you run into or things that you'd like to see, please let us know. That's, again, why we're making these calls. It's really important to understand how you guys are using the tools, what you're wanting to see, and how we can make it better. And again, PowerPoint, along with Office 365, updates every single month. So if there's something you want to see, you could see it as soon as a month from now.
Okay, I have 3 questions, and we'll try and get through these in the last few minutes we got. Question number 1, if we use should we share those? If we export to video, how does Zoom interact with a video export? Does it show that effect?
Yes, it should show the effect, but it will make sure that you also keep advancing. So I can follow up with more details on that one.
Good. That's one I haven't thought to experiment with. Okay, can you show how to reset the picture? So you showed how we could take a Zoom thumbnail and change it to any picture we like. Can you show that that can be returned to the source slide?
Yeah, so again, we're just going to select it and come back up to this handy Zoom Tools. And there's actually just a reset image option under here. So the same place you do change image, you just reset, and now we're back to our thumbnail.
Great. So that's really, really awesome. Okay, if we have the hidden slide example, so your slide number 5, if we had a series of hidden slides, if we go to the first hidden slide, do we advance through those hidden slides automatically? Each one becomes visible because they're in a series of hiddens?
That's a good question. Let me find out. So let's say we go into our slideshow here and tap on our extra content. When I advance, yes, it's going to show that sequence of hidden slides.
And then the follow-up question to that is, if we're in a series of hidden slides, can we return to the original agenda slide, or where we started from with the shift up arrow tip?
Yes, so certainly on the slide that you link into here, we're able to do that. Once you advance, no, you cannot.
And I'll use this as my final question because we're running short on time unless Echo gives me some leeway. But this is a really good one. Did you test having Zoom and custom shows in the same file?
Yes, yes, we did.
And it works.
Yeah, we'd love to see what scenarios you run into. If there's something that's not working like you expect, please let us know and send us the file or a sample file if you can, and we'll be glad to take a look and see what's going on.
Okay, and let me read. Echo says we have no leeway, so we need to wrap up in the next few minutes. And Echo, am I supposed to read this note? I'm going to go with yes. Everybody, this is provided by the Presentation Guild. We thank Microsoft and Derek specifically for volunteering to do what is probably the first event of this type I've seen from Microsoft in all the years I've been working with you. And the Presentation Guild, you can sign up for the newsletter, which will let you know about other upcoming webinars, whether they be members only or open to the public. We're hoping, I say we as if I'm actually involved with it, I just got asked to participate here, but the Presentation Guild is excited to see these come to fruition, do more and more of them, and that is where you'd find out. We will send out a link to everybody that was here. I think we're good, Derek. This has been great. Everything ran pretty smooth.
Great. Well, thank you guys for joining. We hope you like the tools and you like what we're doing with PowerPoint and the rest of Office 365. Please let us know. Another way, if you don't have a chance to give your feedback in the chat, is in all of the Office apps, up in the top right corner, you're going to see this little smiley face. When you give feedback through here, either if you like it or you don't, we read every single piece of feedback directly on the team who actually builds the product. So it's not going to some support team. It's coming directly to the engineers and the program managers that are actually building and designing the features. If you like it, please let us know. If you don't, please let us know why. And be sure to include your email, and we'll try to give you a follow-up.
Derek, I know we'll get you all the Q&A panel here, and there is lots and lots of thank yous. We had close to 100 people online for this, and I'll have 2 quick notes in our last 2 minutes. One is that Derek and some of his team will be at this year's Presentation Summit this October in Las Vegas. I'm not affiliated with the event. I'm just letting everybody know that this is probably the best opportunity to get personal time with the Microsoft development team at a very small event. and that is a great event if you're going to attend it for many other reasons as well. Side note number 2, presentationsummit.com. Thank you, Echo. Come and see us. Echo will be there, myself, and obviously the Microsoft development dev team is going to be a great presence. Side note number 2 is my blog, the presentation, the PowerPoint blog. I have a whole series next week on Zoom. I purposely did not post them until after I heard Derek, just to make sure I actually knew what I was talking about and didn't contradict myself. So if you want to see some more sample presentations, there'll be a ton of them online at www.thepowerpointblog.com. And I think we are now officially out of time, Derek. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, guys.